Good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, October 11, 2022. Excuse me, call the meeting to order. School committee has just come out of an executive session that began around 6 o'clock, and we have adjourned the executive session to return to open session for the rest of the evening. If we could all join the committee in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me, thank you. As we do, start each meeting with the reading of the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next on the agenda, item number 6, a public comment. Any member of the public that would wish to address the committee on any topic, whether it's on the agenda tonight or not, is welcome to do so. Please come up to the microphones, introduce yourselves and your addresses.
Hello.
And good evening, welcome.
Amy Wall, 206 Pleasant Street. Do you want to say yours now first?
Elena Cardino, 4 Swansea Road.
All right, so as you probably can guess, I'm back for a logo update. So we got notified today that OSU has contacted the school and that they're looking into the logo issue, so it's off the table, I guess, tonight for the vote, which is, in my opinion, is good because, as you all know, from the very beginning, I've said that I thought this was a copyright issue, and have brought that up for not only, from a design point, but from the kids' point of, I don't want to say plagiarizing, but we did just update the handbook with a whole new section on plagiarism. So this kind of, in my opinion, goes hand in hand together, where we're trying to get away from doing things like that. We want to have things that are fresh and new and creative, and that was the whole idea of setting up the committee in the first place, was to make sure that we have creative new ideas that people can vote on and share about. So I just have a couple of questions about the happenings, I guess, since June, I think. So we had legal counsel back in June, and we had a letter from Sarah Spatafor, who, for people that don't know, is the attorney. And in her email, hold on, I'm just pulling it up, she had recommended that, where are we? Given the uncertainty and cost of litigation, it might make more sense for Wakefield to go with a different logo. So that was told to us back in June from our own attorney, but we still kind of went forward with that. So I'm just curious, one of my questions is, how much did legal counsel cost for that? And then if we're hiring them again now, what's that cost and what part of the budget is that going to be coming from? So that's one question. And then my other question was, so like I said, I had brought up before about my thoughts of it being a copyright issue. And at the time, we were told that admin was going to look into contacting OSU. And I don't believe that ever happened. If it did, I was never informed about it. So I don't know. We've reached out to them. So I don't know if anybody else has reached out to them to get an answer about that, and why that wasn't kind of looked into. And then what are the next steps? So does I know the survey went out to the kids a couple weeks ago, that's all finished. What happens now? If that goes away, do we just choose another one from those two? Do we start all over? What are the next steps to go along with that? And that might be all I have, I think. But I just want to make sure that whatever does happen, that we have a clear and concise way of doing this. We have a policy set in place. It states what should be happening. And that's been my point the whole time, as you guys know. I've been very consistent about everything I've said from day one about how I'd like to see this happen. And it just keeps, things I think keep getting missed. So I think I'd like to, whatever the next steps are, I think we need to make sure that we have it set, that this is what's going to happen, and we're going to follow through and make sure that that's what we're doing, so that these kids can finally get a logo that they're owed after 2 years of being put through the ringer with this. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
And I was going to bring up that letter that was written in June 15th, 2022 by the Wakefield school attorney. And my feeling is that time and money and the townwide controversy that this logo caused could have been prevented if legal counsel was sought prior to the use of the Warrior logo, which I'm not exactly sure I have the correct date, but maybe September 2019. It was prior to the Native American logo being taken off the table for usage. And I want to know why the agenda tonight was to discuss the Warrior logo student survey. And given the results of the 3 logo designs, and we were informed that we're not going to be deliberating that tonight, what is the reason for holding back the results on the logo? That's a question that I had. And I just feel as though, we'd like to see a resolution to this sooner than later. It's been dragged on much too long during a pandemic. We need some answers soon. And the students need some answers soon. And we were told, speaking to what Amy said, there was a policy put in place, rules put in place that keep seeming to be, in my thought, being changed but the last statement that was made is that if the current logo that's being used right now is taken off the table, the 2 that were designed by the school committee, the logo committee, would be the only 2 being brought forward. And I wanted to know if that is the case. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one last comment too, sorry. I just wanted to say excellent job to the Warrior Marching Band for this weekend. They had a phenomenal weekend, and thanks to Mr. Bankert and staff, they are all amazing, and these kids are awesome. So just wanted to say good job to them.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to address the committee on any matter? Anyone on Zoom? Seeing none, hearing none? Okay, we'll move forward. Let me just also mention to the community that the Vice Chair, Amy Lehman, isn't feeling great tonight, but she is joining us from home via Zoom, so she is an active participant in the meeting, just not physically here in the studio. Okay, thank you. Item number 7, Student Advisory Council. We have some members with us tonight. Come on up, guys. Welcome. Please introduce yourselves and what grade you're in, and we'd love to hear from you. How's it going?
It's going good. First of all, thank you for the comment about marching band. We're actually at practice right now, and we left to do this. And we have another competition this weekend here for Micah Wakefield. My name is Vanessa Westlake, and I'm a junior.
I'm Laura Mangarelli, and I'm also a junior.
Okay, so I'll start us off with the school updates for academics. The Seal of Biliteracy is an award given by the school district and state in recognition of students who have achieved proficiency in English as well as one or more additional languages. The testing to receive this award will take place October 18th to 20th. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to Mrs. Manzi.
Some other school news. Next Wednesday, we have a half day. Also, Principal McLeod sent out an update about absent, tardy, and dismissal procedures over the weekend. If everyone could make sure to check that out, that would be great. Picture makeups are on Monday, October 24th for anyone who missed school pictures. And the whole school reviewed information to prepare for upcoming Alice trails, and we will do a realistic Alice trail in the coming weeks.
Great. Any questions for our student advisors? Yes, Stephen.
You're both in bed?
Yes.
What instruments do you play?
I play the clarinet.
I play the baritone saxophone.
Awesome. Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. That's right.
Busy couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
Exciting.
You're busy next month, too. Yeah.
Yep.
Any other comments or thoughts?
Is a competition this weekend here?
Yes. We're hosting this Saturday and next Saturday, so 2 competitions.
Thank you.
Great. Well, good luck to you both, and the entire marching band. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you for your report. Look forward to seeing you again at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
Thank you very much, ladies. Good night. Good luck. Item number 8, consent agenda. We have a motion.
We do. Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the September 20, 2022 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the October 3, 2022 school committee student services subcommittee meeting, the October 4, 2022 school committee policy and communications subcommittee meeting, and the October 6, 2022 school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meeting as presented.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Okay, budget items. Item 9.
Great.
Christine?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight you have the financial report in front of you from July 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2022. This report includes the first full month of all teaching staff in the district, all paraprofessionals. So September was a busy month with new hires, and we had 3 payrolls in September. What's just important to point out is every staff member in the district, their salary is encumbered for the year. So we try to make sure that when we report, we're showing all positions in the district encumbered for the year. So we really are working with a true budget balance every year. So with everything encumbered with our fixed costs right now, our remaining budget is about 12.67% for the local budget. We're still working on our entitlement grants, which is the grant report. Title I, Title IIA, Title III is still, we kind of finalized those in October to DESE with our demographics of our town. METCO is also up and running. We've also spent fully the summer acceleration grant. The last page is the revolving accounts. They're up and running. School lunch, preschool, Doyle Tuitions is collecting tuitions as we speak, with salaries offset those amounts. Wakefield Academy and Circuit Breaker. We haven't received the first payment for that. That'll probably be within the next couple of weeks. But those are the financials for the first quarter of 2022.
Any questions for the business manager?
The next, I think we have a motion for the 3 payrolls of September.
Yes, move that the school committee approve payroll warrants number 10, number 12, and number 14 as presented.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Gifts.
So we have gifts this month. We have some gifts for boosters teams. For boys soccer is our first gift. It's a stipend to support 1 assistant soccer coach for the fall 2022 season. I think we have a motion. Do
We do?
take that one?
Yeah. Amy?
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $2,500 from Wakefield Boys Soccer, a stipend for 1 assistant soccer coach for the 2022 fall season.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
One more gift for the girls soccer team. We have 2 stipends for 2 assistant soccer coaches for $3,700.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $3,700 from Wakefield Girls Soccer Boosters Club, stipends for 2 assistant soccer coaches for the 2022 fall season.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Passes unanimously.
That's all for
Okay.
gifts.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. Item number 10, moving on, I'm going to reserve some general comments till later, because I wanted to get right into, we have a project update for the new Wakefield Memorial High School project, and our consultants are with us this evening. And so we wanted to make sure that the community had the opportunity to hear and listen to the most recent information, which is readily available here tonight from less than a week old. So thank you, folks from left field. And
Tim Baker.
yeah. Thank you. I know that Lynn Stapleton's with us, as well as Tim Baker, I believe. Am I right on that? So if I could turn it over to you,
Yes,
and
you are.
please present. Welcome back, and we're interested very much in where things are at, of what your recommendations or your proposals as of now. Thank you for being here, by the way.
You're muted, Len.
Lynn, Tim, are you guys with us?
Yes, are you ready? I wasn't sure if I was sharing or if WCAT was, so thank you all for having us. As we told you at the last meeting, we were working on updating the construction costs. Our goal was to get the new construction costs in, and then to develop a total project budget that will carry the project from now through 2027. As you know, the budget that we submit to MSBA is a budget that we cannot exceed as we move forward from this point on. Quickly, I wanted to give you an update. You may have seen some of these at the last meeting, but these are the final images of the building that we are submitting to MSBA in the next couple weeks. Next page. And you can just run quickly through these. These are just images of the building. And this is looking from Hemlock Road. This is the new outdoor classroom area, both at the terrace near the science classrooms where the greenhouse is, and then also on the lower level where there's outdoor workspaces. More. This is the central outdoor commons right off of the dining commons. The media center, and looking out over the field from the media center. And then there's several spaces along the way in corridors where you have commons, and then the gymnasium. So as I said, in trying to develop a total project budget, our first step was to estimate where we were with schematic design, and we went out to 3 estimators. Typically, MSBA only requires 2 independent estimators, but we brought Bond Building on during the schematic design phase because we knew it was a very volatile market out there. So we brought them on board and added them to both AM Fogarty and PM&C. Both of these estimators probably estimate the largest percentage of school buildings out there and have been very reliable in the past in terms of cost. The 3 estimates came in between $229.4 million and of a high, and PM&C is a low at $220.3 million. And Bond Building came in right somewhat in the middle at $223,797,739. We used Bond's estimate as the basis of our total project budget going forward, not only because they did fall in the middle of the range of cost estimates, but because they will be our construction manager going forward, and they will own their cost as they move forward. Next slide, please. So how did we get to this large increase? If you recall, back in April, we made a presentation and we said that projected escalation was, for 2022, was going to be between 7 and 9% based on all the indexes out there. Well, it's actually ended up being 15%. Next slide. And we also in our estimates, we carried a projection of 4 to 5% for 2023. And all the major indexes are averaging between 10 and 15%. Next slide. So we had a drastic change in the construction cost changes, and these changes actually fall in these few categories. The change I just showed you in regards to 2022 being 15%, and the change for 2023 being as much as 15%. We also had some change in the anticipated construction start date, which added about 4 to 6% additional escalation. We had originally planned with early packages to start in summer of 2023, and now that has moved to early spring 2024, just based on the work we've done on the logistics and what we can and can't do while the existing building's in place, and what makes sense to start early and what doesn't. This also allows the school to use the Beasley Oval for the fall of 2023. So the main bid package, we moved from an early spring 2024 date to a late spring, early summer 2024 start date. And again, like I said, that added escalation costs. We also had a few additional scope changes that occurred from the preferred schematic report to the schematic design as the design developed. These were minimal, but they did add in the reason for the drastic cost change. And these were based on some of our investigations. We had to do additional ground improvements. We had the culvert that has to be relocated that exists on site. There's some more complicated logistics that need to occur in order to relocate that. And we also added an 8-lane straight on the track, some athletic storage buildings, both of which were needed. And we were able to refine the development of the outdoor spaces. We expanded the Landrigan parking area, not only to help us during construction, but to provide more parking for the whole campus. We had additional road work that's going to be required, as well as we added a greenhouse in the Science Plaza that you just saw in earlier rendering. Next slide, please. So to sum this all up, where we were in April, we were at construction cost of $175 million. 557,629, and at the end of September, or actually last week, we were at 223,747,739. This represents about a 21.5% change in costs. Where we were in April for the total project budget costs were $220 million. And today we are at 823,204. We were able to narrow that percentage change with focusing in on the total project costs and looking for opportunities for cost savings there. And so now we have a representative total project change of about 19.7%. Next. There was a lot of talk about breakout spaces, and there really, in my opinion, aren't breakout spaces. They're spaces that are unique to Wakefield Memorial High School and the town of Wakefield as a whole. These spaces exist today in the high school, and they are an integral part of the high school educational program as well as their educational delivery. And if they weren't included in this project, the town would actually have to still replace these spaces, and would actually end up being a higher cost to do them as standalone projects. Next slide, please. The cost of these spaces are $26,649,000. Next. What happens if we wait and don't move forward with the project? I added this slide. This is from one of the indexes that we look at, and actually took it from another project because it's representative of what's happened to cost since 2005 to today, and where we've had economic downturns. Construction costs have not gone down. They've flattened, but they haven't decreased. So a lot of people are out there saying that at some point everything's going to crash and the costs are going to come way down. The best I could say is that historically that hasn't occurred. Inflation might have go to zero, but it has not gone negative. Next. And then how do we arrive at town costs? MSBA has a template. It's called Form 3011. You put in all your costs, your soft costs, which are fees, and costs associated with the construction project outside the construction cost itself. We input all these numbers. There's a lot of formulas on the side over on the right of the chart, and it determines eligible costs and what the reimbursement of those eligible costs are. There's various caps on OPM and designer fees, as well as construction and soft cost fees. It's a very complicated formula or process to go through, and also one that's complicated to explain. However, we are working on some slides for the public forum coming up that will hopefully make this a little bit easier to understand. But I just wanted to quickly take you through it tonight. Next slide, please. So our district reimbursement rate is 49.94%. We have some incentives that get us up to 53.13. And if you recall, back in April, our actualized reimbursement rate was a little bit higher, I think 26%. And it, based on the grants, but it has decreased to 21.94% because the fact that the cost of construction has far exceeded the allowable cost per square foot that MSBA reimburses up to. And we'll talk about that on some of the next slides. Next. So this is just a quick how we got from the 4.94% reimbursement rate and what our incentive points were that got us up to the 53.44%. Next slide, please. So we have a projected cost of $273.8 million, and MSBA has determined, based on all of the caps that they have in place, that $152.6 million are ineligible. So subtracting that from the projected costs, we end up with a basis of grant of $109.7 million. Apply that 53.4% to that, and we end up with MSBA reimbursing the town $58.3 million. We get additional contingency grant of $1.8 million, gets us to the total MSBA reimbursement of $60 million that we have indicated. Next slide. And what makes up the ineligible cost? There's a site cost on direct building costs that, in other words, $8.2 million of the site cost is 100% on the town because it exceeds the MSBA cap. Construction cap, based on MSBA, will only reimburse up to $360 a square foot. And as you can see, our construction costs are in the range of $821 a square foot, I believe. So that means that we only will get reimbursement up to $86.2 million. leaving 137.5 million of 100% on the town's costs. Talking about some of our other caps, there's caps of 20% of construction on soft cost. We have kept that below that cap, so we are being reimbursed to the maximum on soft costs. We don't have any additional ineligible costs in that regard. However, there's a cap of $500 a square foot on 10%. In other words, up to 10% of the construction costs, the designer's cost is capped at 500 a square foot, which makes 2.4 million ineligible for reimbursement. And we have, based on the excluded costs that we talked about previously, there's 6.7 million of costs that MSBA will not reimburse for the designer fees. And similarly for the OPM, at up to 3.5% of construction at 500 per square foot, there's $894,000 that is not reimbursed. And we have excluded costs for those same spaces at 2.8 million that's not reimbursed for the OPM. Also, we have some other soft costs, such as any cost over $1,200 per student for FF&E and technology. So we have about 1.9 million over the $1,200 per student, as the cost of FF&E and technology will exceed what MSBA will contribute to. We have some ineligible moving cost of $400,000, and then our construction and owner's contingencies, which are outside of the total project budget, although added in, MSBA will not, if used, MSBA will not participate in 10 million of those costs. We were able, from the last time we saw everybody in April, to reduce the square footage of the building from 260 down to 260 and some odd hundred square feet, down to 259,847. We were also able to reduce the MSBA ineligible square footage down to 36,625. Next slide. So this all wraps up and indicates that MSBA's share of the cost is about 60.1 million, and the town share is 213.7 million, with a total project cost of the 273.8. This translates to about $2.05 per thousand of assessed residential property value. Next slide. This represents a change from April of 2022 of 1,058 per average single family value to 1,384 in October per average single family value. Or costing this out by the month, it went from $88 to $115. So does anyone have any questions? Hopefully I didn't go too fast. I was just trying to give you a quick overview of where we stand with costs.
Well, Lynn, thank you. That was that was a lot of information. I don't think you went too fast, but it's certainly a lot for us to absorb. But we're certainly going to be obviously taking the time to do that, not only here, but within the community forums in the next coming weeks. But certainly thank you for that information, and it's exactly what the type of information that we need, moving forward. Being able to communicate to the community openly and transparently about the expectations that we have, or the hopes and desires we have for the new school. So again, thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Mike?
Quick one, Lynn, this is Mike Pedro. How are you tonight?
Hi.
So Lynn, what are the chances that 273.8 million goes higher?
Well, I think we have a good handle on the projections going forward for inflation. And we also had to work hard to make sure we established a budget that would carry us through 2027. So this budget that we are getting ready to submit to MSBA cannot be exceeded as we move forward.
So it can't be the point, if it exceeds that, then the town has to make up the difference, I assume.
They would have to make up the difference, but I think we did our due diligence in terms of the three estimators. We did a lot of research on market indexes and projections going forward, as well as some research on the financial situation with bond market and everything else. So I think that we feel as confident as we can be, and I think we are in a much better position than a lot of other communities that set their project budget over the last couple of months and are facing issues now as they move forward into the design and doing their estimating at the various phases of the development of the design, like design development, 60% construction documents, and 90%. They're at a point where they're having to reduce scope in order to continue with their projects. I think we've hit it at a point that we feel confident with the number that we've put together as we move forward over the next 4 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pascallo. A couple questions. I think around the reimbursement, I think just talking with some people around town, I think there was some disappointment with the percentage of the reimbursement from MSBA. So my first question is, how does this compare to what is typical for a high school project? Is it in line with what we're seeing with other districts, or are we somehow unique in the percentage that you're predicting that we'll get back? And then the second question I have, it seems like MSBA, the construction costs have obviously increased considerably, as you showed there, and the reimbursement rate from MSBA is based upon probably some figures that they had also in the past. Is there, I think I know the answer to this, but is there any way that MSBA would ever revisit that figure or the percentage that they pay for construction costs, knowing that it's gone up? I mean, everybody knows that.
MSBA is getting a lot of pressure to adjust their allowable cost per square foot, and they're going through, looking at. It takes them a while to establish what increase they may or may not provide. I also did hear, typically in the past, if you had signed a project funding agreement prior to them issuing an increase, you're out of luck. But I have heard that there may be some exceptions if and when a new increase occurs. But they are looking at that now. I don't know how quickly they'll move, but they've been asking a lot of projects out there to provide cost information. So, and this project is one. So we're hoping that that does occur and helps us. I will say, since in 2021, near midpoint of 2021, is when MSBA initiated all their caps. They were trying hard to kind of level out how much they paid to all communities so that they would have more funding available for all communities as a whole. And from that point on, people were getting about half of the reimbursement rate that was indicated. And I will tell you that since construction costs have kind of skyrocketed, we're not even getting half now. It's because your effective reimbursement rate goes down as the construction cost goes up higher than the $360 a square foot that MSBA will participate in. But so because of that, we are a little less than what we would have anticipated, which would have been about half of what the indicated reimbursement rate is.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, having been a part of the Galvin process, like we got a much bigger percentage back. So in terms of the MSBA considering potentially increasing the construction costs, is that something they do as a quasi-independent agency, or is that the legislature? How does that work? Do you know?
I think they have to report on it, but they are the ones that go through the analysis and they provide an analysis of it and it gets approved. But they are the ones responsible for increasing it. But they do work with the DOR, Department of Revenue. And trying to and a few other state agencies in trying to analyze it and come up with what the increase should be.
Okay. I was just wondering because we have a couple legislators coming in soon. Just didn't know if it was worth maybe I'm sure it's already on their agenda, but planting that in their ear as well. But thank you for those answers.
Absolutely. Any help in that regard would be appreciated by all communities that are facing school construction projects now.
Doug?
Lynn, a question that we often get is the reimbursement rate for the Galvin was higher. And if we were to construct the Galvin today, would we get that same reimbursement rate?
No, you wouldn't. Number one, back when the Galvin was constructed, the base reimbursement rate was over 50%. I want to say it was maybe 52 or 53. And our base reimbursement rate for the high school is 49.94. So that's one factor. But when we did the Galvin, all these caps that MSBA added in 2021 were not effective at that point in time. And for the most part, MSBA reimbursed all soft costs. That's any cost outside of the construction cost. They reimbursed all of it unless it was a space that was ineligible. So I think Galvin ended up with about 2/3 of the published rate for reimbursement. I mean, there were still caps on construction at that time, and the cost of construction did exceed what MSBA's reimbursement rate cost per square foot was, but we probably got about 2/3 of our effective rate was about not that much lower than what our indicated reimbursement rate was.
Thank you, Lynn.
Any other questions? Lynn, I have a question sort of under the same general topic as Doug's. We see on the slides that you had to put up in that there are two references to reimbursement rate. And I think one of the points of maybe confusion, but certainly of question, is going to be what do those two numbers represent, and could you explain the differences between, what is called the reimbursement rate itself and the actual reimbursement rate? Now, we appreciate that the reimbursement rate of the 53 or so percent based on the total, but then the ineligible costs come out. Can you walk us through that a little bit more so we can appreciate the differences between the two things that are called reimbursement rate?
It might be easier for me to do it by putting a slide up.
Yes, please do.
I don't know if WCAT wants to do that, or
I don't
can
think
share.
that's the slide that best does it, but
It should be the one that I can't see what he's putting up there. So.
that one says ineligible costs, which is my second question, but okay, this is not a bad one. Right.
I can't see the slide, so.
So this slide says
Okay, there you
MSBA
go.
reimbursement rate, but this is the one that my brain went to in asking the question.
Okay.
Because
Okay,
there are
next
two
slide.
references to reimbursement rate, and you could help us appreciate the difference
Okay.
between the two.
So you start with a reimbursement rate that MSBA gives the town based on poverty, economic, other economic factors of the town. and housing. And so you start out with that base reimbursement rate. There's also about 5 different incentive points that you can get. And we were able to receive 1.5 for good maintenance. There was a maximum of 2%. We were able to get 1.5, which is slightly over the MSBA average for that category. And then we also were able to get 2%, which is the maximum for energy efficiency, being over 20% over the Mass Energy Code. So that's what gave us the 53.44%. And if you go to the next slide, I think it is, you'll see here that once you take the projected total project cost of $273.8 million, and you subtract all of the ineligible costs, which is applying all the caps, the 8%, anything over 8% of construction costs for site work is ineligible. Anything over the $360 per square foot of construction costs is ineligible. The ineligible cost on the OPM and designer fees, as well as FF&E and technology costs, anything over $1,200 per student. Once you apply all of those, you end up with $152.6 million that MSBA won't participate at all in. So when you subtract that from the total project cost, you end up with what they call the basis of the MSBA grant, which is the $109.8 million that you see here. And if you apply 53.14% to that $109.8 million, you end up with a reimbursement to the town, or what we call MSBA share, of $58.3 million. Then they have given us additional contingency grant money, which is 1.8. So that gets us to the total MSBA reimbursement of $60.1 million.
So appreciating that, this is a great slide for that purpose. 53.14% is the number, is the reimbursement rate, sort of maybe step one
Right.
of the
So when
total
you-
amount after the ineligible costs have been taken off. And then the 60
So you
million.
do get the full rate, the 53.14 that MSBA tells you, but when you look at it based on all costs,
Yes,
that rate drops down to what is really an effective rate,
right.
which, so that's how
Yeah.
it goes from what the published MSBA rate is to what the effective reimbursement rate is.
Right. And I think that, as this slide is now showing, that goes, the effective rate being 21.94%, meaning the 60 million reimbursed against the total project cost, including the non-eligible amounts.
Correct.
Gotcha. Yep. So I think that's an important distinction, because we understandably sort of went through that relatively quickly. But when the word reimbursement rate was shared a couple times, I thank you for helping focus us on that. Yes, Kevin?
Yeah, so obviously the shocking number, right, is the ineligible, like looking at just the $152 million. My question is, roughly, and I know this might be a hard question off the top, but what percentage of the $152 million, the ineligible money, what percentage of that has to do with the $360 per square foot limit? Like, is that most of the?
There's a slide on that. If you could show me that slide, it's, I think it's called ineligible costs. Go back,
That's it.
right there. So the construction cap at $360 per square foot gives you $86.2 million of eligible construction costs that they will apply the $360 per square foot to. And it leaves $137.5 million of costs that are 100% on the town because it's ineligible.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up to that? So
Yes.
that $137 million number, that number does not take into account the extra spaces, right? The excluded spaces. That just comes from that construction cap, that 137
Well,
million.
the construction costs include the entire building, all the site work.
Okay.
The Hemlock Road realignment,
Okay.
it includes everything. So, when you include all of that, they determine, so yes, that ineligible cost includes everything. From the construction perspective, that it includes the cap over the 360 and what they won't pay on ineligible spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts? One thing, and Dr. Piscatello mentioned this earlier, that at our next meeting, Senator Lewis is coming in, who's our state senator, to give a legislative update and that sort of thing. I certainly think that it would be incumbent, and I'm sure we're all prepared, to make some very vocal outreach to him about seeing what types of things may be able to be revisited or looked at differently since maybe the last time that MSBA and the legislature did this, meaning a look at things in a different way, especially given the type of costs and increases that's going on in the marketplace. And I think that it's certainly time to revisit that based on even the numbers that you're sharing with us, your first set of numbers from last April, and the set of numbers now, here, let's call it 6 months for the sake of round numbers, not even 5 months, right? And seeing some noticeable increases. So maybe just off the top of my head, and I don't know if Lynn or Tim or any members of your team either have suggestions that you could help us with making, or to put it in the correct sort of thinking. What sort of advocacy can we begin to do with our state legislators? And I know our two representatives in the House will also be coming in, not on the 25th, but at a future meeting. It seems that we may want to ask the legislature to begin looking at increases, just bottom line increases to the formula themselves, really raising all boats a little bit. But one of the other things that I think is important perhaps to ask MSBA to do is to reconsider the type of things that they now deem to be ineligible costs. That doesn't seem to have adjusted with the adjustments going on in the marketplace. Costs continue to rise, as one of your slides showed, even in the last, what'd you do, a 10, 15-year window there?
Yeah.
And even in the, regardless of where the economy may have been, the highs or lows of the economy, the costs continue to rise, stabilize a little bit there in that August of 2015, or no, August of 2014. So those, off the top of my head, seem to be things that we can make outreach for. If there's anything else that you may think, please pass that along, whether it's now or communicating directly to the superintendent. So we can certainly make sure that we advocate for that.
I would definitely say that they haven't raised their cost per square foot since well before we had 30% increase in costs over the last couple of years. And certainly what our hope is that the escalation won't go as high as the indexes are indicating for 2023 and beyond. And at that point, we'd actually end up coming in well below the budget we've established. But we do feel that we are carrying costs that will sustain what may or may not occur in the future in terms of construction market. But I do think that asking MSBA, I think the more pressure they get from cities and towns, the more likely they will act quickly.
Mm-hmm. And we may have an opportunity, I'm sure we're not alone in this, the other communities that are right now in the same sort of pool that we're in, time-wise, are facing the same types of concerns and reimbursement rates. So we're not sitting alone as this, on an island, seeking this outreach. And we have our state convention, state conference of superintendents and school committee members coming up in the first week in November. So that perhaps is something also that we may be able to begin some advocacy. One other point, if I could ask a question, if you could go to the slide that had the three contractors, the three construction firms that at the beginning, that one there. You had mentioned, bringing bond into the mix, going from seeking 2 quotes to 3, which I think is a very wise idea. Thank you for making that part of it. We also have some good experience with bond here in the town, so I'm pleased to see them in the mix. Could you help with my memory? Did we, the community of Wakefield, agree to sort of the at-risk management?
Yes.
Could you explain that?
They voted
Because that's putting bond on the hook for managing the budget that they've presented. Could you explain that to the community a little bit as well?
Yes, we went out and procured a construction manager at risk for the project, and Bond was the successful firm that we selected. What that means is once we establish a construction cost, that it is Bond's responsibility to stay within those construction costs as the project moves forward. I mean, if there's some sort of gross unforeseen event that causes the construction cost to go higher, or there's an owner scope change, or various other things could be added to the construction costs that we wouldn't hold bond to, but for the most part they will be responsible for the budget that they set throughout the duration of construction.
Right, and I think that's an important part of the story, that it is one of the precautions that Wakefield put in place to make sure that whoever the construction management company was, that they're going to own that number, and they're going to be responsible for managing that number. Certainly, as you said, anything short of another natural disaster or another COVID or another something that drives the economy completely out of whack, they own the responsibility for the management of the number that we're prepared to, at least at this point, submit to the state for review. And that's another important part of this work. I think people want to know that the consultants that we're having manage the project have to own the costs beyond. There's not a blank check being written here. There is a number that's open and upfront and transparent, and they own it. Anything beyond that. So I think that's an important piece too. Yes.
I will say both the OPM and the designer will be held to the total project budget as well. Once the scope, we've set the scope for the project, so SMMA is responsible for keeping the project within that cost, and as well as the OPM is responsible for ensuring that we keep the total project cost within the budget that's been established.
Yep. Another very important point, thank you. Okay, this information was shared last Thursday evening at the Permanent Building Committee. We asked Left Field to come and share it again tonight in a different sort of audience and on WCAT and on camera, so the community has an opportunity to know that this information is very new, very fresh. It was, again, first shared last Thursday, and it is going to be submitted to the MSBA as the estimated project cost at this time as we move forward, leading into we're still expecting an MSBA vote in December. Is that we're still on
21st.
December what? I'm sorry.
21st.
December 21st. Okay, very good. So, if aren't any other questions for our consultants, thank you very much, both of you, for being here tonight and for the work that you do and keeping us on track.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. I know Thursday night's presentation was literally hot off the presses because we were working hard to develop the total project budget. So hopefully we were able to explain it a little bit better tonight.
Great, great.
And we're going to be working to try to make it a little more easier for the public to understand. And we'll be presenting it at the October 18th public forum.
Right. And I think that's an important, our last point then that you're making, that I think maybe even taking some of the questions and the feedback that you would have received here tonight from the committee, that might help, with your slides and your phrasing and things to focus on a little bit. Will these slides be available on the project website? The slides that you presented here
Yes.
tonight? Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good
Good night,
night.
all. Okay, so we certainly have our work cut out for us. The news, the exciting news about moving forward with all of the facilities and academic and social and extracurricular needs of the high school haven't changed, but we've now got some, the next step in that piece was obviously understanding some of the fiscal and financial realities. So we have our work, cut out for us. And I think being able to share some now concrete information with Senator Lewis and Representatives Garabedian and Wong will be very important as we move forward in the coming weeks. So, moving on. Item number C under item Chair's comments. Update on the superintendent evaluation process. To let the community know, last Wednesday evening, the school committee had a workshop, professional development workshop for ourselves on DESE's process by which superintendent evaluations are conducted, and the guidelines and the directions and so forth, and making sure there is linkage between the superintendent's goals, the district goals, and the type of things that we have going on ourselves. I thought that workshop was beneficial and fruitful. Certainly, anyone that would like to make a comment, please do. I think the important thing to state under this very briefly is that as part of our discussion, we had agreed to push back by one meeting the public evaluation of the superintendent to give us a little more time to capture the type of things that we're looking at. So the superintendent's evaluation, which was scheduled for October 25, will now be the first meeting in November. Right? So I think we all recall that, but I think I know that we had previously announced that October 25 would be the superintendent's evaluation. That will now be Tuesday, November 15. Okay, any thoughts to share on any of that matter? Okay, seeing none, we shall move on. Superintendent's reports. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you very much. With the permission of the chair, I would like to take the items out of order so that we can try to get the principals and some of our parents up to the table to start. And
Please.
I'd like to invite Ann, Chrissy, and Rosie up to the table to talk about CPAC.
Welcome, or welcome back, I guess. It's great to see you all. Welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. No? Okay. Thank you so much for having us. I think last year we were on Zoom when we came in, so it's nice to see you all in person. I'm Ann Herzog, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight representing the CPAC, or the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, along with Chrissy Loftus. And Chris Martone Levine and Carol Lombardi are also two of our volunteers who help us greatly with their contributions. So I wanted to acknowledge them as well tonight. We also wanted to acknowledge the support and collaboration from pretty much everybody in this room, but from the school committee, with our liaisons. This is a sort of a new idea we had this year, was to develop a liaison position between the school committee and the CPAC, and Mike Boudreau took on that duty first of all, and Stephen Ingalls has taken on for this year, so we appreciate that. And we also wanted to acknowledge Rosie and her contributions in meeting with us and hearing some of the issues that parents are bringing to us, and Superintendent Lyons and Assistant Superintendent Caramaro, your support in collaboration in best meeting the needs of all children in our district, including children with disabilities. So, and of course, our amazing staff, the teachers and the professional staff are amazing in our district, as we know. And just as an informal indicator of that, in May, we piloted a new project where we said parents could submit a CPAC superhero nomination, and we had no idea what the outcome would be of that. We knew, from our families that the staff is terrific in Wakefield, but we weren't sure what this would look like, and we got over 60 nominations, 60. So that was an incredible, I think, testament to the job that we're doing for the kids of Wakefield. But just a little bit about CPAC in general. So parent advisory councils are required by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as outlined in Massachusetts Special Education Law. So just wanted to acknowledge that. And for our CPAC, we have a couple of goals and purpose, and that is to promote awareness of special education services, to be a source of information and support for families whose children receive special education services in Wakefield, and to work with the district regarding meeting the needs of all of these students. Rosie recently shared with us that, was it 15.9% of children are about right? 15.9% of students in Wakefield have an IEP. So potentially CPAC can serve and support many families. And I also wanted to just take a minute to speak about the experience of parenting a child or children with disabilities. There's different timelines that families have. Some families learn that their child has a disability at birth. Some families learn that their child has a disability later on in the parenting journey. And some families have both of these experiences, as their child might have multiple areas of disability, or they might have more than one child with a disability. But regardless of the timeline of when you learn that news that your child has a disability, it can be a really life-changing moment. It can be a really frightening time, a really lonely time. So one of our goals as CPAC is to be there for families and support them through that. Because parenting a child with a disability can also be quite rewarding and a wonderful experience as you see them make progress and flourish. I think you really learn to truly appreciate and celebrate what we sometimes call ordinary miracles, such as a first smile, a first step taken, a first sentence spoken, a first new friendship, or even a first book read, even though these milestones might happen in your family at a much later stage than a typically developing child. One of the gifts of having a child with a disability is the connections made between families. There's nothing quite as special or as powerful as a connection between families who have children with similar issues. They simply understand, they get it without lengthy explanations, without questions, without judgment, and to be truly understood and supported in that way and in that space is incredibly powerful. Another gift is the gift of perspective, taking nothing for granted, cheering your child on through each goal they accomplish, whether big or small, along with their teachers and staff. And the Wakefield School Committee's mission statement that we heard earlier tonight aligns with what we believe most families want for their children, that they grow up to be confident, lifelong learners who are respectful and caring members of the community. And we also hope to continue to foster an ongoing sense of collaboration with Rosie Galvin, with the administration, with teachers, school staff, and families. We really believe that it's in the child's best interest when the teachers and staff at school and families are all working together to brainstorm and come up with goals and objectives and interventions that are going to help the child be successful. So in terms of our programming, so we recently sent a communication to all of you summarizing our accomplishments and events from 2021, 2022. And let's see if I can pull it up here. We also have a new logo I wanted to share with you that was not. Is it underneath?
I think it's on the side, yeah.
All the way under. I thought it was all the way under.
I'll find it somewhere. There it is. Okay. So this is what we're using this year with student designed, and we think that's lovely. So our goal is to continue to be a source of information and support for all families of children with disabilities and those who require special education services. We're planning to do that in a number of ways. Starting with this Thursday, we have a virtual basic rights workshop, and that goes over special education laws and just sort of a how-to if parents have questions about how do I get started. I feel like maybe there's an issue that I want to learn more about how I approach the school about this. So that's this week. And I just wanted to say too, we have a balance of virtual and in-person events, because one of the things we found with the pandemic is that for some of our families who are raising children with complex medical issues or other developmental issues, it's sometimes difficult to find childcare. And so we want to continue to offer that mix of both virtual and in-person events, because we get good audiences for both depending on what the event is. So this year we're going to continue to do that and be open to feedback from families about that. And then later on this month, on Monday, October 24th, we'll welcome our Director of Special Education, Rosie Galvin, as well as other district leaders and special education coordinators at an in-person meet and greet at the Galvin Middle School, where parents and caregivers will have an opportunity to meet the staff and have a chance to ask questions. We have an annual business meeting in November, and we're also planning an in-person dessert social on December 12th at the Savings Bank in Wakefield. In January 2023, we're planning a workshop on evaluation and eligibility presented by the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And in February, we're excited to be hosting a presentation by Dr. Ellen Bratton. She is the director of the Learning and Emotional Assessment Program, or LEAP, at Mass General Hospital and an assistant professor of psychology at Harvard Medical School. She will be speaking on processing speed in children, but she also has a new book coming out, I believe in February. That sounds amazing, about how to motivate children to learn when they might appear seemingly unmotivated. So we're super excited to have her coming. And we've begun collaborating with other CPACs, with Reading and Andover, Woburn. We've been in touch with all of them to provide additional workshops beyond our programming as well. So there is a lot of power in knowledge, and that's why we provide these workshops and events for caregivers and families. And we also believe that if the parent and caregiver feel empowered, that benefits the child as well. We do have a website, that's www.wakefieldcpac.org. And we also have a Facebook page. And I also wanted to mention, part of our role is to serve as a voice for families of children with disabilities. And in that role, we do hear a lot of feedback. Parents might email us or, catch us on the street or school pickup or anything like that and just run some things by us. So a couple of things that have come up so far this year that we've been advocating for, and Doug knows this already from our meetings, and Rosie too. There were some questions about accessibility and making sure that those needs are met with the new school design at the high school, especially making sure that there's accessibility to the planned second floor therapy rooms and the outdoor spaces that look amazing, but we want to make sure that everybody has access to those. There's also been I know everybody has had challenges with PowerSchool, but for the special education world, this has been a challenge too, because services are not listed the way they were on the IPASS schedules. And there's a section in PowerSchool where you can contact the teacher, and the special education teachers aren't listed there. So if you look at that page, it looks like special education doesn't exist. So we're working with Rosie and with Doug to make sure that we can enhance those items on PowerSchool so that there aren't any barriers to communication, not only with the regular education teachers, but also with the special education teachers. And we also noticed that Rosie's contact information wasn't on the website. Your phone number was there, but not an email, and so often parents use emails instead. But Doug took care of that in I think less than 30 minutes when it's brought to his attention. So I appreciate you updating that as well. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be part of the CPAC and to be here with all of you tonight. Looking forward to working with Rosie and with all of the special education coordinators and staff to continue to best meet the needs of families and children receiving special education services in Wakefield. And I'm going to pass it along to Chrissy, who has some words to add too.
Yeah, I won't keep you too long because I know this meeting gets long. I just wanted to share a quick story that what inclusion means to us and what it means to others in the community. Today I was working at the Doyle and I was pulled aside by a parent that knows that my child goes to Galvin, and she pulled me aside and said that her daughter has been reading to my child who is nonverbal, and she said that she comes home every day feeling like she's accomplished something, that she's had such anxiety that has crippled her to not want to go to school and not want to do these things, and what it means for a more general education student to come into a classroom of a child with mine that's in a sub-separate classroom is that she has a sense of accomplishment, a sense of belonging, a sense of that she's helping, and the benefit of what she brings to my child is that my child also feels like she belongs and that there's a piece. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for harboring a relationship to continue with the inclusion and, you know, helping these relationships create bonds that are going to last a lifetime. And I just wanted to share that, and I thought it was important.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I have a comment more than a question, I guess, having been the liaison for a while. Stephen's taken over. I guess what impacted me the most in meeting all of you amazing people was that, you know, really you wanted to get the word out to those parents that wanted to know they're not alone.
Yeah.
And that there's someone there who in some way, as Ann said earlier, kind of gets it, have been through a similar experience. And to me, that just seemed like such a simplistic thing, and yet it's so challenging. So one of the things they had asked me to do at meetings, and you all heard, is, you know, if you can just mention at the meetings, just so people are aware, you're there to help them. And you know, there's nothing like talking to somebody who's been through a similar situation. They get it. They understand it. So, you know, I think what you're doing is amazing, and the children involved in this are amazingly loving and caring. So, my thanks to you. Wonderful job. Thank you.
Anyone else? Comments?
I'd like to say
Eileen,
something.
please.
I'm currently going through a process. I'm gonna get emotional, so I'm sorry. And it's really nice to not feel alone. So I just want to say thank you to you guys, because it's. I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional. I wasn't going to talk because I didn't want to get emotional, but it's very nice to have that in our community. So thank you. I can't say anything else because I'm gonna start crying more. So apparently I will not be talking later. It's been an emotional week, so thank you.
Our kids have led us down a path that's been, like Ann said, so incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
And we've had those days that we have cried
Yeah.
and have not been able to talk about it. But we've had more days that we've had smiles on our faces and excitement in our lives.
Right.
So they've led us down paths that we never could have expected.
So thank you guys, because and it's just been an emotional week for me personally, clearly. So thank you.
So I think
Kevin?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I just wanted to speak to your story that, you know, being a high school teacher, I've seen, like, I don't want to say hundreds, like, but so many examples, just like what you said, you know, where you'll see a student who, you know, could just be like just a random kid who I, you know, don't really know that much. Teachers don't really have much positive to say. Then they'll have an interaction with a student with a disability, and all of a sudden you see this, like, whatever you want to call it, a magic moment or whatever. But it does happen over and over again. So, like, so when you told that story, just to tell the community that it is real, and that happens a lot. It happens probably, you know, tons of times every month in all the buildings. So it does speak to the value of inclusion, and obviously a big part of what your mission is. So,
I mean, luckily we see it
Thank
every
you.
day in my household because,
Yeah.
you know, my other kids are
Oh, yeah.
incredibly compassionate.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think on behalf of the administrators, I want to say thank you for your effort, your work. Chrissy is working with the Wakefield Public Schools, and Ann is not yet working with the Wakefield Public Schools. But I would love nothing more. I think, you know, your fierce advocacy for all kids and your support of parents is amazing, right? And it is a trajectory where, in the beginning, whenever eligibility is determined, right, there is this sense of isolation, of not knowing, of trying to figure out, but that changes, you know, that is one moment, and then it changes in another moment, and then it changes in another grade, and you both have kind of been there for parents and for us administrators, and kind of helping us be better and provide the best programming possible. I also could not be more pleased in the relationship that you have with our new special education director. It's amazing, and so thank you. We much appreciate what you do. So
Thank you all for, you know, being open to working with us and collaborating. I think it's been great.
thank you.
And more to come.
More to come. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I didn't add that Ann is often on our Thursday afternoon calls and will kind of chime in to ask the right question to kind of keep us focused on things that we need to focus on in regard to Power School or any number of things we have going. And so your feedback is it's helpful, so thank you. I genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite the principals up next. I think we're going to start off with Shannon Blacker, who's going to talk about the school improvement plan. Before you get started, Shannon, I would just like to remind the committee that when we made reference to goals last week, we talked about there being an alignment to district goals, superintendent goals, and school improvement goals. And so what you're hearing tonight is really about school improvement plans and the goals at each level. And so I'll turn it over to you, Shannon.
I think we're gonna need to get a name tag for Shannon. She's so much.
Yeah, right.
You're like
Been here a lot.
Is this frequent flyer?
Got my quota. I've met my quota already. It's fine with me. All right, so I'm here to talk about the Doyle School Improvement Plan. So I'm a little bit different than the rest of them. I always say that, I think, all the time, every time I come here. For goal number 1 under quality teaching, I focused on what I talked about in the last meeting that I attended, was the readiness standards for the group moving off to kindergarten. So really focusing on the kids in 3 of the classrooms, the one at Woodville and 2 at the Doyle. Looking at those older classrooms, making sure that we're ready to go for kindergarten. I don't know how much we want to get into the objectives or
I think a
just
summary
overall
is good.
summary. Okay.
You have a slide for questions at the end of each.
Right. So basically, under that one, just the foundations program, we're tracking it, we're starting it early during PLCs, really working on honing in on those skills, collaborating. And then also the last objectives is around collaborating with the curriculum coordinators a little bit towards the second half of the year, making sure that we are implementing the new Haggerty program. So that's quality teaching goal. The second goal is under rich and challenging curriculum. This is aligned with the elementary a little bit around the math standards for pre-K. So last year we did a little bit of work with the new math curriculum, just looking at kind of where are those through lines that we can kind of bring down to the pre-K level. So again, working with my ILT and then the curriculum coordinators and then during PLCs to collaborate on where those through lines can be, what can we start teaching at the pre-K level that aligns with the math curriculum. And then the last goal under individualized student learning, this is really spiraling off of the work that we started last year around writing better goals and objectives in the IEPs. And I had a group of teachers that worked this summer on fine-tuning our evaluation process at the pre-K level around students with special needs. So really working on how we do our evaluations and how they will lead to better goals and objectives in the IEPs. Any questions?
When are you coming back again?
This spring. To give a report on how well we're doing.
Shannon, just
Sure.
curious how the preschool over at the Woodville is doing, how the parents have been talking about it, or?
So I haven't heard a ton from the parents, which is a good sign, right? Yeah. I think, Matt, I don't know if you want to help me out. But
I'll help you, Chan.
But overall, you know, the kids are doing great. I'm in there observing. You know.
Yeah, I think there's a real toss-up of whether they're Doyle Ducklings or Woodville Bears, right? So we have kind of met it, you know, in stride, welcomed them into the school. They're really kind of learning the routines and procedures, and I think it's been a success up until this point. So we're excited. You know, it's a pilot program, so it's a 1-year kind of commitment, but we're hopeful this will roll over year over year.
Great.
I think we've done a good job letting parents know to reach out to us if they have questions about little things that may happen. So we have heard some parents for little things, that tweaks that we can make on our end administratively, to like arrival, drop off times, things like that. So that's been positive. Made some adjustments there.
And we've been able to meet those demands, so up until now, all is good.
Great.
So I don't want to miss the opportunity to just say, you know, Shannon's goals, the way they were laid out, it aligns with our academic core, right? Same way that our goals are laid out, right? So we talk about curriculum, talk about supporting teachers, and then we talk about meeting the needs of students, right? And so all of the goals are laid out in that way, you know, to create not only alignment, but also hopefully differentiated outcomes depending on levels. And one of the important things that Shannon and Matt are working on is really kind of building an age-appropriate curriculum at the pre-K level, which we hope will kind of serve students well as they move into kindergarten. So we're also seeing kind of a range of needs in the pre-K 1-2 spaces, where there have been really some significant gaps in student experiences prior to coming to Wakefield or starting school here. Fair to say? And but I think that they've collaborated with each other, and I think we're better for it. And I think kids certainly are. So thank you, Shannon. Matthew.
Sorry, we traveling as a pack?
Matthew, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Matt Carter, I'm the principal of Woodville.
Tiffany Back, I'm the principal at Greenwood.
Brian Schmidt, principal at Walton. And T.J. O'Gordy, principal at Golden. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. We're excited to tell you a little bit about our school improvement plans as well. So we work together on our plans. I'll just make a few points of emphasis, and then my colleagues will each speak about one of our goals. As Doug just said, one goal is focused on curriculum, one teachers, and one talking about differentiating for the needs of students. And those goals this year are actually the same goals as we had last year, but we have kind of updated the action steps to reflect sort of the next phase of those goals and to reflect the work that we're doing on them this year. My colleagues wanted to make sure that I mentioned that this is just a small sliver of the work that we're doing in our schools. These are things that we're still focused on, and we want to make sure we continue to do well, but just part of the big picture at each of our schools. So as you'll see in a moment, our goals focus a bit more on our collaboration and new math curriculum, as well as our win block and how we're differentiating for students this year. And we're excited to tell you a little bit more.
I like the blue one better. That's,
I thought he was going to be too.
well, you know, give me a mic. We may knock it out of here tonight. So under bucket one of quality teaching, as Brian said, we didn't make too many changes to our goal. Is still to explore, for our staff to explore and utilize instructional practices that are promoting student collaboration and productive struggle, specifically in the area of math. When you look at our action steps, they still really focus on collaboration amongst teachers. In the first action step, working in PLCs with coaches around this area of productive struggle in collaboration. Curriculum leaders, we're very proud of the programming and the system that we've set up here with our coaches and coordinators, as well as administrators, to go in and observe and provide targeted feedback to teachers to support their work in this area. And then lastly, teachers using the data that they're collecting through iReady and other areas of formative assessment to look at which instructional strategies and practices are the most effective so we can promote those. Turn it over to Tiffany for our next goal.
I don't know why we didn't sit in order of our goals, but there we go.
People guess.
Exactly. Just threw everything. Well, actually, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
So our second goal is about rich and challenging curriculum. And I was thinking as we looked at this when Brian was mentioning that our goals are the same. We've updated action steps. And I was noticing on this goal, they talk about the new illustrative math curriculum. And even though we brought it in last year, I think it's fair to say it's still a new curriculum. Anyone who's implemented new curriculum knows that it takes more than 1 year to really own it and to understand it and to be able to really implement things in a strong way. And I think one of the things that our staffs really appreciated was that we emphasized this in our school improvement plans, that we're not done with the work with this new math curriculum, but now we can really go deeper into that. And our action steps really illustrate that. Teachers and the STEM coordinator and our coach worked over the summer to create a scope and sequence document to go along with the curriculum, looking at, timelines, obviously, for teaching units, but even more so, the kinds of intervention activities we can use, enrichment activities we can use, kind of putting things all into one place so that the unit planning is really there and solid for teachers to be able to access, to really be able to do their best work with students. So that's one of the action steps that was really important to us. The second one, once you've been through it one time, you have a better idea of what's coming, so that allows teachers to be able to better prioritize activities within a unit to kind of say, I need to spend more time on this, maybe I need to spend less time on this, make those judgment calls that in the first year is really difficult to do because you're just trying to figure out what everything looks like. And then the last part goes to our ILT structure. We have a lot of great teacher leaders in our schools, and we want to make sure that we are really taking advantage of that to work with the coaches and coordinators and reach across all 4 buildings. I think one of the things that we really do very well as elementary principals is we talk to each other, we find out what we're doing, and we try to really stay on the same page as to what is going on. Each of our schools has, their own unique special things. I'm not going to mess with the Woodville Bears at all, but we also have a lot of things that we want to have in common. We want to make sure that when kids get to the Galvin, that they've had this rich elementary school experience that is common across the town, so that they all come together really well prepared for that point. And we think this goal helps us do that.
Perfect. So goal 3 is really around individualized student support and really trying to find thoughtful intervention time within a schedule. Anyone that's worked within any type of schedule, elementary through high school, knows that, minutes matter and finding them can sometimes be tough. But one thing that we've been really excited to do is find intervention time daily in all 4 elementary schools, and that's through our WIN block, which stands for What I Need. So it's really about finding 30 minutes in the day in each classroom where students can, it's usually consistent across grade levels, the time. So there's the ability to collaborate across a grade level as well. And it's really about getting students what they need. It could be math support, it could be around reading, it could be response to reading, could be some writing activities. It really is kind of that thoughtful time when teachers look at individualized student data and try to get them exactly what they need in that moment. when we kind of look at this, it's not like a thoughtless process, right? So we do have some intervention kind of teams built within kind of schools. So one thing we do have across all of our schools are data teams, which are times where we come together as a grade level and really look at individualized student achievement and growth, or areas of potential growth, and really try to target kind of our instruction moving forward in a timely way towards these big picture targets that we have in mind. So data teams typically meet 3 times a year, and then we also do like our progress monitoring meetings in between each data cycle. And again, it looks unique at each building. So if you look at kind of TJ and myself, we have 4 grade level, 4 classrooms at each level. There's Walton and Greenwood have 2. So the timing might, take a little longer at some of the bigger schools, but the conversations still are kind of rich in nature, really focused on what students need in that moment to be successful. And then, like I said before, the interventions can span, right? Reading, writing, and math are kind of the core ones. I know at different schools, based off data points, they may start off the year really focused on reading and kind of work math into the picture. But I know that this year we've been fortunate enough to get some additional funding to actually get math intervention up and running this month. So that's definitely earlier than we have in the past, which we're very thankful for that additional resource at our schools.
Questions?
Yes, Stephen.
I'm interested in sort of your take on the addition of a STEM coordinator at the elementary level, and how that's sort of assisting in your providing a challenging curriculum. I think I've seen some things sort of come home that's been more sort of STEM driven, and I'm just interested sort of on your take and how that's been helpful.
It's been amazing to have somebody to really coordinate that work, someone who has that perspective of what's going on at all 4 schools, and also really has that ability to delve into math standards, science standards, and look at different ways to bring those into what's going on. Val Drynan has an amazing background in math and STEM areas, so right from the moment we were doing the math search for the new math curriculum, she brings a strong background about what kids need, how they're learning, which curriculum or curricular tools are going to help us do that. So she'd be able to kind of open up new pathways. ST Math kind of comes to mind. She was the one who really introduced us to that, and it's become a really valuable resource for all of our students.
Yeah, every good team is just as good, or is only as good as their teammates, right? So Val is excellent. Lisa Azzarito on the literacy side is fabulous. Both of them have coaches that kind of work alongside them and support them. I think it's been well embraced at our school and across the district. So we're very fortunate with that.
I think too, the investment of that curriculum model to have the support working with the principals and with teachers has been invaluable as well. I think, as we all know, as much as we can sit here and say we're experts in everything, there's a lot that goes into the work that we do, and having that level of support that can go in and give direct support to teachers from STEM, humanities, in those areas, specifically when we're looking at curriculum and how to improve student experiences and as such like that, has been really invaluable. So we really, appreciate the investment that our school community has allowed us to make in enriching these opportunities for our students.
Just one last upside. Everyone else no, but Tiffany made a point about us making a concerted effort to stay on the same page, and that's a huge way that we do it. Yeah. That coordinator role really, really helps us stay focused, stay together, and yeah.
We meet twice a month, plus additional times as individual schools, and so their work has been invaluable to the work we're doing.
That's great to hear.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, kind of. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, sure.
I thought you were still going. No?
I wasn't. I was just saying that's great. The collaboration is fantastic, and it's great to see sort of in the students. It's something that you often think that you have these different populations coming into one building. The more we can equal that sort of playing field, the better. And that's great. Thank you for working so hard together as a team.
Kevin?
Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen. Yeah, I think kind of dovetailing about what you just said is that the challenge for the 4 of you is that you're all in your own separate buildings. So even though you have the centralized curriculum coordinators, you're still in charge of your own buildings, plus you have all these other responsibilities you have to do on a daily basis, let alone thinking about curriculum and what's actually happening. So, so let's say that like at the Dole Bear, there was this great instructional strategy that a teacher had. Like, well, what's the mechanism for that? Is there a mechanism for that to be communicated to the other schools? Because I mean, I could just see it be so challenging, like, let alone being. I think I'm just too competitive. But just the fact. But like, is it really something where you just reach out to other people, and be like, hey, this is what, like, this person did. It was awesome. And
so there's a couple thoughts that come to mind, Kevin. A couple different vehicles we have. First, we're blessed in many ways to have this structure where we could allow learning walks to happen with curriculum coordinators. Yeah. We also at ILT, our instructional leadership teams, we have a time built into these meetings where the coaches and coordinators rotate through, and it's almost like a feedback session. What's working? What are you seeing? How can we share this? So there's that constant loop. And, we joke about, the four of us being in constant communication with one another, but really we're looking to have a consistent model that can be shared throughout the four schools, because we know how important it is for students in every building to have a consistent experience. So those vehicles exist naturally, kind of organically through conversations, and they also happen in more structured environments like our ILT, where teachers are sharing information and feedback loops.
Okay. So there's multiple ways for that communication to happen, not just you guys talking to each other, but also the coaches being able to spread it through.
It's even through, we have coaching cycles. So our coaches will go in and we're working with different faculty, and they may say, hey, we'd love to have you see so-and-so in this particular school or building or a grade level, and kind of learn from them. So creating that open door policy in that environment has been so central to the success of our district.
That's great.
So our ILT is our instructional leadership team, and it's individual, at each of our schools. But last year we did make a concerted effort to come together as a big mega ILT at the end of the year to kind of share practice, because we really are trying to develop as much teacher leadership within our buildings as possible. And really have that permeate through the building. So to your point, right, like we don't necessarily want to like silo like great things happening. We want those shared amongst teams, and then through PD amongst the greater, elementary team where possible.
Great. Thank you. That's awesome.
Michael?
I think it's awesome that you work so collaboratively. I think that's fantastic for our school system. One of the things I wanted to ask you all about really is learning loss. The past 2 years we finally have a normal year. Let's hope that continues. But I'm just curious of your observations of what you've seen and how you're working towards correcting. Fortunately, at the elementary school level, you have some time to, it's harder at the high school. So just wanted to get your general thoughts on what you've seen and how you're dealing with it.
I mean, I think the thing that immediately comes to my mind when we think about learning loss at the elementary level is a social emotional learning loss, which is huge for elementary. Kids having stamina to be able to do things, kids, being able to talk to each other in the same ways. I know the teachers talked a lot about, especially coming back, and we had our hybrid year, which, we had spent a lot more time in school than some other districts spent that year. But even so, when we came back full-time the next year, teachers really noticed the difference in kids' ability to talk to each other, to hold a conversation, to kind of sustain that, because they hadn't had the practice in previous years, just those social interactions with each other. So I think, folks are spending a lot more time doing some of those things and doing some of that work than they had to before. That being said, of course, we're seeing some things with foundational skills and literacy. The kids that were in kindergarten during that hybrid year didn't necessarily get the same base that they would have had they been in full time in a normal school year. So our first grade teachers, worked really hard to be able to fill in those gaps and to be able to build. And like you said, being able to get them while they're younger, they missed things, but they also are soaking up a lot. And I think people are putting in so much effort to be able to kind of come with that. So I think with us, we hear learning loss and we think about that social emotional piece the most. I mean, you can.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also think one of the best things about working with young children is how resilient they are, and how how much better they are than all of us at handling change. They really kind of roll with everything really well, and not to say there, won't be learning loss. I'm sure it'll take time before we can fully see what that actually looks like on paper, but I'm just overall super impressed with how resilient our students are. The learning loss that I'm not seeing, and how quickly they've relearned a lot of those routines that Tiffany was just talking about, like being together in the lunchroom, being together at recess. When we first got back to that last year, that did feel hard, and students definitely were out of practice. But this year, I feel like we're back at it. And they're
Yeah, I think that's why goal 3 is so important, right? Like really kind of digging into like individual student data and trying to figure out where those gaps may exist, and then trying to figure out a game plan to solve it or problem solve as a team. I think teachers are working exceptionally hard every day. I had some goal meetings with teachers today, and just the overwhelming theme is just how hard they are working each day for the students of Woodville. So in terms of academic loss, I think it's better than I thought it would be. I think that's kind of my overall take, and I think I can build on what Brian's saying is, I think that was our main worry coming into the fall of 2020, like what it would look like a couple of years out, and what we're seeing doesn't seem as bad. So that's promising news, I guess, from my standpoint.
There's also been an incredible investment support from through the budget, through school committee, through Doug, Kara, Christine, Rosie, our complete central administration team, through acceleration academies and through the summer and the after school, that has really supported students from a variety of different backgrounds and supporting their learning. So, I agree, Mike, when you talk about that learning loss, and there's also been an incredible investment both through acceleration, but also through investment in curriculum materials that are standards aligned and the data to support students. So we actually hit at a good time with a lot of the things that we're turning over to really support and put our district in a position to be successful moving forward.
Good stuff. Thank you all.
Just a quick comment, and then I think a question. I can formulate it in my head. I'm struggling coming up with the exact wording. In goal 1, you mentioned productive struggle a couple of times. Just my comment. I had never heard that, so I Googled it real quick. It's a really interesting kind of concept. I love it, so I'm going to bring it to work in my students. So I'm giving you some productive struggle. So I really like that concept. So. I guess maybe I'll ask this. So, as you mentioned, this is a small part of the huge work that in your roles and responsibilities. Maybe taking a step back, how did you? Obviously, the structure is set: quality teaching, rich and challenging curriculum, individualized student learning. But what was the impetus for the goals you did identify? Why these in particular, as opposed to maybe others that you could have chosen?
Well, I can tell you the conversation from a year ago was really around supporting the implementation of the math program. And I think as a group, we really felt like 1 year of commitment to that, at least in writing on this, wasn't enough. So to really kind of continue to get that work across the line and hold its value for faculty, families, and guys, for students. It was really about trying to keep that kind of in here for another year. So that's really kind of where the math-related concepts come from. I'm not sure if anyone wants to add on to that.
Yeah, and same for the differentiation and intervention piece, the third goal. I think that was something, like Matt said a few minutes ago, that really we knew would be really important. And that had existed in the district before in pockets, but wasn't consistent. We knew we wanted to develop that to better and make that a common practice, and kind of make the most out of it and prioritize that. So that's why we continued with that third goal.
Yeah, and I think just having that idea of having it be a visible through line, rather than have a set of goals 1 year and then the next year it's a different set of goals and you wonder what happened with the other goals.
Right.
We might still be working on them, but this keeps them visible, and we thought that was important.
Yeah. And reading's like, we talk about reading every day too. You know what I mean? So that's why I think it's important in the beginning. We highlight like small sample, right? Which you referenced as well. Like I talk about reading every day with our reading team, with teachers, where students are at. with families. It's like at the forefront of everything we do as well. It just doesn't necessarily get memorialized in this 3-point document.
Right. Not yet.
Not yet.
Right.
Next year. Next year.
Right. No, thank you, and I echo what everyone's been saying. I think the collaboration of all the schools coming together is excellent, and just really glad to see it, and hopefully it'll continue because there's huge benefits to it, and for all the reasons that have already been said. But thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Kirk, do you have any?
Thank you so much. I think, just quickly before you go, I hope that you can see and feel the regard and respect that the principals have for one another. It doesn't happen by accident. I think that their relationships with one another it's contagious in very positive ways, and I think it carries over to your faculty, and I'm very pleased that the faculty is so involved in the creation of these goals. Earlier, if you pay attention to our curriculum review cycle, it says math 1 year, then we move on. They all pumped the brakes and said, no, we need more time. They all highlighted intervention services for kids because they knew kids were going to need more time. They knew teachers were going to need more time with curriculum. So these are exactly the types of moves and the relationships that move districts, right? I think often our principals kind of, are quiet and in the background, and we highlight the amazing work of teachers very appropriately. Very appropriately. They're killing it in classrooms every day. But our leadership team and our principals are an amazing core of people. But thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So as we move on to the secondary improvement plans, Principal McLeod had an unavoidable conflict tonight. She regrets not being here. But so she and the whole high school administrative team and the Galvin administrative team collaborated on the development of goals together. So Meg will carry the brunt. I'll jump in where I can. But Principal McLeod said if anyone has any questions about the high school improvement plan, feel free to reach out to her via email. Okay.
Hi everybody, I'm Megan Webb, I'm the principal at the Galvin. I'm sorry, scratchy voice tonight, but I am what you've got for your secondary principals.
I feel like I want to go sit next to you, Meg.
Yeah, I felt that. But Kara's right. Amy's team and my team worked very closely on these both last year and this year, so I feel like I can probably hit the broad strokes for both schools. But certainly if you have detailed questions, I'm sure Amy will be able to answer for the high school's part. So you'll hear a lot of, I think, familiar things that you've heard from early childhood and elementary, which I think speaks to alignment K to 12, as well as, I know it's awesome to see all our elementary principals together. But we also have 3 goals. The first is around quality teaching. And for both Amy and myself, it was important to highlight both access that students have to rich and diverse curriculum through particular instructional strategies that provide rigorous and genuine opportunities for learning. We're both thinking a lot about kind of grade level instruction and how to know that we're teaching on grade level, and how do we use the Common Core standards to help our teachers gauge that in their lessons. But then we also wanted to make sure that we clearly stated that staff learning was equally important to all goals, but particularly this one. And we both are trying to either establish or further establish cultures among our teachers that foster kind of a genuine curiosity to be in each other's classrooms and spaces and learn from each other. I think just as you saw our 4 elementary principals exchanging ideas and learning from each other's schools, that opportunity is there every day in schools, and you have to, I think, often kind of purposefully foster that to make sure that teachers know that that's not only an okay thing to do, but a great thing to do. So we're starting that. I know Amy has done it a little bit more formally through PLC cycles, so we both outlined that the goal was to have at least 2 cycles of peer observation within the context of the PLCs that already exist. At the Galvin, we're kicking it off in kind of an informal way. Just our ILT members sent out emails to their teams just saying, get into someone's classroom. Here's a super basic just survey that you could fill out if you wanted. You didn't have to. just to talk about things that you learned, and we'll share that out at our next whole staff PD. And then kind of move into a more formal version of that as we look at action step number 3, looking at specific strategies related to academic discourse, which ILT is working on through the fall to be able to present to the staff in the winter. I think if you look at the high schools,
I think
they're exactly the same. And
those
the same
are the
for
same.
the next one.
Yep, the next one has a
The next one is the
yep.
same as well, so easy peasy. So in terms of curriculum, we also are continuing implementation of illustrative math, the IM curriculum. For us, we're formally adding grade 7 and grade 8. In the high school, I want to say
So they're,
it's Algebra 1.
Yep, Algebra 1 and Geometry.
So both of us had implemented in most, and actually, to be honest, at the Galvin, it was almost all classrooms last year, so almost every teacher is in their second year of implementation. But the official launch of 7th and 8th grade is this year. So continuing, just as elementary school principals talked about, just making sure that we don't do that for a year and then move on to something else, that's a long-term investment for us. Continuing work again on diversifying text, making sure that we have a variety of voices in all of our curriculum. We've done really focused work in social studies and ELA. Those two content areas lend themselves particularly well to that work. But I've seen some awesome stuff going on in science and math as well, and thinking about representation and how do we make sure that a range of voices are present in all classrooms. We're also excited to be a part of the ELA curriculum review process, which is being developed. We've had some great conversations about what that looks like 5 through 8. I think if you're familiar with ELA curriculum, there's a ton of research and work going into early childhood, early elementary, and then it gets a little bit less developed, I would say, as you get into middle school and high school. And so we're also talking with Kara and our awesome curriculum coordinator to figure out how we best tackle that at our grade levels, not wanting to miss any of the urgency that we feel around it, but also wanting to do it right. All right,
and you hit on all that. These are just like we just said, it's the same other than. And then I'll just add one piece for the curriculum review for relevant PLCs. The way we ended up just structuring the ELA curriculum review is we have a K through 4 group, and we're actually having grade 5 and 6 reps join that group to bridge the elementary to middle transition. Just kind of trying to think about looking at common resources together, and then 5 through 8 will also meet together as a group, and then 9 through 12 will meet as well. So PLCs, I think, are primarily structured by content area. And then the third goal.
Yep, so goal 3 also is sort of a middle and high school version of what you heard from the elementary principals. Really thinking about how do we implement units and lessons that include challenging and differentiated tasks that support all learners. So this idea of ensuring that what I was talking about earlier with grade level standards and rigor, that isn't just for a certain set of students, that should be for all of our students. And so we've been doing work, and will continue forever, as anyone in schools will, doing work developing inclusive teaching practices, using just the immense awesome team that we have of curriculum coordinators, instructional leaders in the building, administrators, ILT, we've been doing a lot of work to try to align and bring all those folks together around some common themes. Also continued work around co-teaching, and we're really excited. Our special education coordinator, Christian Cunha, who came to us from Cambridge Public Schools, has done a huge amount of work around co-teaching, so she's excited to dig in our inclusion classrooms across the building. And then I think a difference between, for step 3 for the high school and the middle school, is a similar theme, but just different spaces in the building. So we're looking at continuing to refine our team block time, which for us is a block that students spend on team. Last year, it was essentially a time for students to get what they need in terms of supports from teachers. They could move the different subject areas on their team. Students receive special education services during that time as well. This year, we are refining it further to make sure that there are different themes each day. Students get academic support, they get social emotional learning, curriculum, and executive functioning work, and then different interventions as well. So just work around that. I think at the high school, they're looking at their advisory block for a
Yes.
similar lever to do some similar targeted work with students.
Yeah, I think you got it. The advisory and then other opportunities for specialized instruction, which would primarily be LSCs at the high school, I believe.
So that is the gist.
Thanks for covering
Yeah,
that. Any questions?
Same question I asked the elementary school, was talking about learning loss, what you've observed and what you're doing to
Yeah.
accelerate things if necessary.
It's funny when you asked that question, I heard learning walks, and then the way they started answering, I was like, what are they talking about? That's where I am. I'm not talking about learning walks. That would have been wrong answer. But I think similarly, what we're kind of knee deep in is the social emotional piece in terms of I think our particular age group missed some really critical developmental years of socializing and of learning how to be at school and how to interact with others. I think you layer on top of that middle school is a very tumultuous time in the best of times. So we're just seeing a lot of, I would say, more pronounced need to learn how to be in school, to learn how to be in the cafeteria, to learn how to treat each other. And you throw in online social media platforms, and it's interesting every day. But I think the kids, I'll echo what the elementary principal said, they're great, and they're figuring it out. They just need a little bit more from us, I think, both at home, at school, just to help guide them. Middle school, I guess, is an opportunity in that case. High school might have a different set of challenges, I'm sure. That the kids in middle school are still fairly open to us as humans, for a while anyway. 8th grade's in question, but I think there's lots of opportunity there. Academically speaking, it was a universal experience, so I like to think of it less as loss and more as like we're just kind of in a different place, and where do we go from here? I think there's the same urgency, need to move forward that teachers feel, that we as administrators feel, and understanding that, we're not in the same place we might have been 2 years ago, but it's the same work. We're just doing it kind of in we're just having to learn a lot about who's in front of us at any given moment, and then do the best work we can with that information. But the kids are awesome, and they have proven to be all these past 3 years. So they just need a little extra love, I guess.
I'll ask you the high school question since you're the surrogate, I guess.
Oh,
today. So how do you see the difference at the high school level?
I mean, I think Amy would be better suited to speak to it. I'll give it my best shot. I think we're seeing across the board, just really around the student skills, like people have said, around stamina, being in class, executive functioning skills, organization. Kevin's nodding as a high school teacher. That's good that we're on the right page. But I think that's what we're hearing a lot of. Definitely. In terms of content, obviously during COVID, not as much content could be covered, but I think that, our teachers, our curriculum leaders really rallied during those times to prioritize key information for what students needed to know and be able to do moving from grade level to grade level. So even though we couldn't cover as much during that time, I think that our district really pulled together and did a phenomenal job trying to prioritize what our students need to know. So I would say, in line with the other principles, going back to studenting behaviors and stamina and organizational skills, I think that's really where we're seeing impact in the classroom. And I think it will develop over time. I think, like Meg said, I think just our assumptions about where students are, we might just have to pause and meet students where they're at and give them a little bit more where they need it.
Stephen?
Hey, Meg, I had a question regarding Goal 3, which is sort of the finding sort of what the individual student needs. I think I have an easier time visualizing it sort of at the elementary level, where a student is with an individual teacher for the most part, and that team can for some reason, I think it's easier to focus on one student in that environment as opposed to once you get to middle school and high school, you get separated amongst different learning centers.
Yeah.
How do you approach getting that individual student sort of what they need in that more varied landscape?
Yeah, I think might be part of the reason why the middle school we're focusing on the team block and the high school is doing advisory, because we still have at the middle school we have a team structure still. So although you don't have one teacher the whole day, in 5th grade you have 2, and then in 6th, 7th, and 8th you have 4 kind of core subject teachers. Those 4 people talk to each other all the time. They share about 90 students. And special educators on the team as well. And so students still have a home base all the way through 8th grade. So in a team block, the students are on one of those 4 teachers, in one of those 4 teachers' classrooms, but could say, Mr. Engels, I need to go make up some work for him. I'm going to get a pass to go see Mr. Engels, and we're going to do that work. Teachers also get together and say, let's review the latest iReady data. Let's look at Common Lid. Let's look at data that we have in front of us to figure out if we need to group students, pull kids out for small group instruction. So it's not wildly different from elementary. There's just kind of more players, which in a way can help provide some more nuanced support to students. Special education services, which we call workshop, also happen at that time, but we've been careful to make sure that the thematic days are inclusive of students who might be in a workshop setting or might be in one of their team classroom settings. So a variety of things might happen for a student during that time. We're just trying to figure out how we can best use it. It's 42 minutes, and so it flies, right? So figuring out how you can use data best to support decisions about what students are getting during that time. It's kind of where we're at. We haven't arrived at something we're really thrilled with yet, but that's why it's a goal.
Okay, so a work in progress, but
A work in
definitely-
progress, but a lot of potential there just given the setup, for sure.
Okay. And it's more collaboration sort of across your team, and so you get like a more, like to your point, more varied sort of perspectives on sort of how to approach an individual.
Yeah, and then the flexibility, not unlike how an elementary teacher might decide, I'm going to focus on, with this time I'm going to focus on literacy or math, but it would be I'm going to send this group over to their math class, I'm going to send this group to social studies, and so it's a similar idea, but just with the specific subject level teachers kind of stepping in to support students with what they need.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think in order to be a really good educator, you just got to be a really good thief, and you just got to steal, from the best stuff that other people are doing. So, I'm pretty excited that one of your action steps is the 2 cycles of peer observation. But I know just from being in the game how tough that is to implement. So do you think that a vast majority of the teachers will be able to get through, be able to walk through at least 2 classrooms to be able to see a full class? Because that's, it's something that really, I think for something that's something that costs no money relatively, it's something that can add so much, when teachers are able to see a lesson and all of a sudden they're like, oh, and I've stolen stuff that I've used my entire career, and it's invaluable to just be able to watch that. So is that something that really, it really is?
So the 2 cycles languages, it actually can be calendared out really easily. We actually thought that was kind of we should have probably put more, but because of the PLC structure that we have both at the high school and the middle school, and our curriculum coordinators who are fully a part of the development of this plan, can lend, either you're going to say you have to be a thief because there's no time, both analogies work, because we're trying to steal time, not steal, it's use time that might have been allotted for a PLC meeting that a curriculum coordinator was going to facilitate, or a liaison, which we call our teacher leaders in our building, and then say instead, we're not holding that meeting, go out to a classroom. So that it's not a teacher having to decide, am I going to give up my prep? Am I not going to have lunch? Am I what am I going to give up in order to do this? We're going to build it in. One of the curriculum coordinators said, but then they have to give up our meeting. I was like, oh, I think they'd be okay once in a while. So so the idea is to help facilitate that. And at our school, we're trying to make it very casual and like literally, if you found yourself with 15 minutes and wanted to go to your buddy's classroom, like it was just to establish that idea that a lot of people already have and do in a small circle, but just try to get it to be more of how we operate as a building. And I think most people are going to be excited to do it, and then once they see that we're giving time to it and real estate that already exists within the contractual calendar to it, like it's important to us, then it'll just become part of how we operate. So that's the plan over time to provide this opportunity.
You had your ILT model this first, right? For the
Yeah, so
building.
last year we did,
Yeah.
ILT modeled it, and then we did one of our staff meetings as just a structured conversation around instruction, using data that we had from that experience, just to dip a toe in the water.
Yeah, because there's nothing that can replace just
Yeah.
watching it done.
I agree.
Right, you can go to like all the, professional development, you want, but if you actually see it done in a certain way, then you're like, oh, no brainer, I'm gonna do that when I teach this unit. So
That's the idea.
Great, thank you.
Great. Right.
So one of the beautiful things about the middle school schedule and the teaming is that when they are observing other classes, it's not just the instructional practices, and this is the nuance part which relates to your answer, Stephen, as well as your answer, Kevin, because there's watching instruction, but then there's watching students with different needs in different spaces and how different teachers might accommodate for that, right? So that's kind of a small nuanced area where sometimes as teachers collaborate, it's like a school within a school, right? It's not like a department structure, they're a team structure. So the core content area teachers serve the same students. So as I see a student, if I'm on that team, if I'm a math teacher and I see a student in English participating in a way different than he might or she might in math, I think, I might have to talk to that teacher. How did you make that work? How might I tap into that to engage a student differently? And that's something that the team structure kind of allows itself or lends itself to do. And so it can really, but it's time and space, right? To go back to your point, Kevin, about how do we make it all work, and to go back to the points that were made earlier, teaching students, self and social awareness, decision making, executive function skills, as Kara was pointing out. I mean, this is the coaching that we're doing a whole lot of now, because we have to take care of that to get to the content. If we don't take care of that, we can't get to the content. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's a quick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meg.
Very good. Meg, thank you very much. Whoops.
Oh, good, Amy.
Oh, poor Amy.
Amy
Sorry,
McLeod,
Amy.
yes.
I don't know how to get that done.
I had raised my hand for the elementary, but. Okay.
Well, we actually
I just
can't
have-
see you. Can we put Amy?
Oh, you can't see me?
Well, can
That's
we
all
put
right.
Amy Lehman back? There we go. Thank you.
So I just had a couple questions, and I think I heard, are the principals coming back in the spring to talk about where they reach their goals?
Yes.
Okay, because I was wondering what they were gonna use for the measuring tools, but maybe that will be discussed in the spring. And then I had a question about, and I think it's great with the elementary principals collaboration, but I'm wondering if there's any conversation with the Galvin when they do get all their students, like, hey, we're noticing that all the students from the Dolbear really excel at this skill, or this school kind of comes over and it lacks that skill, or once a student becomes a Galvin student, do they lose their tag of where they came from? Does that make sense?
No, they still wear their T-shirts.
No, I meant like academically.
Once a gator, always a gator.
They're very proud, as they should be, of their elementary schools. So we do a pretty extensive process through the spring to get to know our elementary students, our fourth graders, through the eyes of their elementary schools and teachers and principals. But then no, we don't lose touch. There's not that many of us. I often reach out to to the elementary principals just with the question. I mean, whether it be how they cover certain curriculum or, you know, how they supported a family or just any number of questions, because it is a small town and it's a small group of us. So I think we're able to use that to our advantage for sure. And the kids do. They're very proud of their elementary schools, probably all the way through high school, I would imagine. So I don't know if that answers your question, Amy, if there was.
Yeah, just, and this is probably, I think COVID allowed the principals to come together more. At least that's what I saw, but there was a lot more years ago, you know, hearsay and rumors that students were coming in at very different levels from the 4 elementary schools. This would be before you came in, so I'm just curious if that got better, which it seems like it has.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I've, even in 2 years, or a year and some change, I think observed a lot of work on alignment. And I mean, you know, like curriculum or coordinators.
I think the coordinators,
Yeah.
maybe that speaks to the elementary coordinators and the middle school coordinators working together to help that.
Yeah. And then for Amy and myself, I think the coordinators too help to just make sure that there's alignment 5 through 12. So no, we see quite a bit of each other for sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
Amy, are there other questions?
Oh,
Amy?
no, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Meg.
Thank you, all.
Thank you, everybody.
Safe travels home.
Yes. See you next week, Shannon.
I'd like to thank Kara as well. You know, as I'm sure you can see in every one of these slides, every connection and comment to curriculum coordinators, coaching, science, STEM questions. You know, this is, so much of this has Kara's fingerprints all over it, right? And she's kind of quiet over here on the side, but
The
like,
team's amazing.
This represents her work, as well as the curriculum coordinators. This represents 3 or 4 years of her work. And so this is really quite an accomplishment, and I feel like we're in a pretty good space moving forward. We have certainly a lot of work cut out for us, but I think people are certainly up for the challenge, so thank you, Kara.
No, thank you.
Did I miss anything, Kara?
No, I think we covered it. Thank you.
All right. So just kind of jumping back to the beginning, comments and updates. One of the things that I want to be clear about, this is not a direct response to the earlier public comment, but I do want the community to know that we received a letter from legal counsel representing Ohio State on Friday afternoon with concerns about the Warrior logo that's currently being used. That's the W with the Warrior across it, as well as the stripes on the football pants, which are the same color as the Ohio State stripes. And so the letter that we received had advised that we pass this letter on to our legal counsel to really look at what the claim is, their cease and desist claim around, it's a technical term, it's called dilution, which is trademark dilution, which is that when other schools, lesser schools or lower schools kind of have images that are similar to, it takes away from the quality of what images that they have, quote, trademarked. And so we are going to turn this information over to legal counsel and let them kind of guide us around next steps. And once we do that, we will kind of get back to the work of deliberating and really looking at a logo. I agree with some of the comments that were made earlier in regard to students in the community do deserve for us to kind of resolve this issue and to kind of come up with a logo that kind of represents what the students want. And so I think that that's something important to know. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that. Yes, sir.
Has the survey been distributed, or is it still?
The survey's gone out and has come back.
No, I'm sorry. I meant the results of the survey. I'm sorry.
We're going to share the results tonight.
Okay.
But but because of the letter that we got,
Yeah.
we thought that it would just be premature.
Yep.
And so we do feel good about the feedback that we got, and it gave us some direction, but I think we need to wait to hear from legal counsel just in regard to responding to the letter and next steps.
I figured that was just a question, so I.
About the logo. No, it's a
Yeah,
great,
okay,
great
yeah,
question.
Okay.
Aren't the survey results in the meeting minutes?
I
From
believe.
what
policy
They
and
haven't been announced
communication,
yet.
Yeah.
but we approved them tonight.
The survey results? We haven't
Yeah.
been presented to us yet. They weren't presented at the last meeting.
They weren't in the packet that we just approved tonight.
They were
Let me
going
look
to
it up.
be,
Yeah.
they're in the packet tonight, but they haven't been approved or presented.
We didn't approve the policy. Hold on, let me read the motion.
We did.
They're in the
They're
middle.
in what?
They're in the policy and com minutes from the previous policy.
Oh, the
com meeting
policy
that we had.
subcommittee meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there we
Oh,
go.
they're there.
So they'll be up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but without, I mean,
Yeah.
they're, as a standalone information, that, you know, I do think we need to kind of present things in an appropriate order, right? And so I think the first order of business is us responding thoughtfully to this, to the letter that has been kind of given to us, and then we will get back at this and revisit this. And so, yes, it was made public to the policy subcommittee, not to the larger school committee. Fair? Great. So if there are no other questions with that, just a very quick update in regard to Power School. So we continue to kind of bring Power School and we're working on report cards, report card formats. Donna Cushman continues to really be amazing in this space with Power School. And just kind of pecking around and talking with some other districts that are using Power School, I think we're doing pretty well. You don't have a context for that when you're in it, but just hearing from some other districts that have also brought Power School online this fall, it sounds like we might be in maybe a little bit ahead of some of them or in a better space, and I attribute that largely to Donna Cushman and Jeff Weiner and all the work that they're doing. They also had a change in personnel. They had we have 4 positions in our IT department. We have a new person that we had just started in September, and so that's really, so we're bringing someone up to speed while we're managing tickets and a number of other programs. We've also rolled out, we've also rolled out new laptops for all of our para educators, which is a plus and something that they've been asking for some time. They were using Chromebooks in the past, which created any number of difficulties. So the IT department is juggling quite a bit. And when Jeff kind of gets a moment to take a breath, it would be great to have both he and Donna Cushman come and talk a little bit about this work. AJ Beebe is also jumping in and helping out with this work as well. His talents are just unlimited, right? And so he has tried to retire for the last 3 years unsuccessfully, and so more to follow on that. So that's it for my comments. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Could you maybe, Ann had mentioned earlier about the lack of sort of specialist scheduling in Power School for some of the students with extra needs. Can you share any detail on sort of where that is?
Yeah. So student accommodations or special education students used to have information denoted on iPass, which is it's no longer denoted in the same way. So, the concern is if it's not denoted, is it happening?
Mm-hmm.
And so, your IEP entitles students for support to happen. So even though it's not, presented in the same way, we are obligated by law to provide that service. So I feel like it's something that we need to look at and really work with our special education teachers on but I do think we're providing service. I do think it's just a different system that we need to resolve. The other piece that it really
Okay,
raises
yeah.
is just kind of privacy for students. And I know Carol.
Yeah, no, I think it's more from the conversations I've had, more of an impact at secondary, where elementary has more of a classroom teacher schedule. Here's a schedule for the day. Special ed teachers may go into certain blocks or pull students, but the schedule really drives everything the students do at the individual student schedules at secondary. So I think one of the things that they were noticing is that, like, for instance, Meg used the term workshop. Workshop at Galvin is a time where students might get a reading support, or writing support, math support that's on their IEP. And I think I think it wasn't saying, like, on this block, on these 2 days of the cycle, workshops happening. It might, because oftentimes students have to not do something else to get a service. Most of the, like Meg said, services try to take place during team time, which is more open, but some students might not go to a specialist class to receive a more specialized support. So it's really secondary, I think, that was seeing, not seeing the special ed services laid out on the individual student schedules, if that makes sense to you.
No, it does,
Yeah.
and I didn't mean to imply that services weren't happening.
Yeah,
Because, no, they clearly have, but no, it just sounded like a, sort of like a bookkeeper thing, just that they were used to seeing it on their schedule.
Yeah.
It does not show in the same format
So
in
they knew
Power
which day of the
School.
cycle their child might have support.
And there,
Yeah.
so is there a way, sort of from a technology aspect, to make that happen, for that to show back up there, or is?
We need to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if Power School has the same space and way to make that annotation. And so that's something that we need to figure out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think in the meantime, special ed teachers are doing a nice job of kind of filling in, making, individual student schedules so they know
Yeah.
which days,
Yeah.
they all know where they need to go and which days.
Back to a more manual process?
Yeah. Tape it on the front of a binder or something.
So that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you. Excuse me. Okay, subcommittee reports, finance, Mike.
Yep, so we met last Thursday. We spent a decent amount of time talking about the new high school proposal that we actually heard about tonight, because the meeting was last Thursday night. But we also talked about a couple other things, Dolbear becoming Tier 1 eligible, and we also talked about the exciting news that online timesheets are on the way. So I think everybody's happy, teachers and administrators alike. Payroll is very happy. And then we'll meet a week from Thursday. That's it.
Okay. Labor and Labor Relations, we have a subcommittee meeting tomorrow morning. So nothing to report as of tonight, but we will at our next meeting. Student Services, Amy.
Hello there. We met last week, I think. It was a small meeting. It was short and sweet. We briefly talked on the direction we want to take the subcommittee in, but where everyone wasn't at the meeting, we're going to continue that conversation at our retreat tomorrow to set some goals. Rosie joined us and she gave us a positive special education update on the opening of schools, the differentiated professional development she has planned, and IEP meetings are now back in person. Or you also have the option of Zoom. And our next meeting is Monday, the 10/17 at 5.
Very good, thank you. Policy, Stephen.
Yep, so Policy and Communication met last week, I believe on Wednesday. And the discussion started off with, we'd had some questions from the community around our digital use policy, how it's represented in the handbook, and also some dress code things regarding sort of head coverings and in assemblies and things like that. So we talked through some of that stuff with Doug. And just sort of got to a good place and sort of how it's communicated out. One thing it highlighted sort of was how, when we roll out new policies, how does that get communicated down to educators, and are the tools that we're using effective in terms of making sure that everyone is aware of sort of when we maybe make a shift, ever so slight even. So we talked about that a little bit. Eileen is sitting with the bullying policy for a little bit. and we're going to take a look at that and see if there might be some things that need to be sort of polished a little bit. There was some linkages missing, I think, in one of the handbooks to the bullying policy. I think that's going to get taken care of. And then we moved on to see about some things that we also want to look at in terms of like maybe the wellness policy and directing in some of the Safe Streets work that Amy had even mentioned in our previous meeting. We'd like to maybe bring that in a little bit to the wellness policy and also some dietary stuff. I think bringing on a new food service director in Dustin, I think is a prime time to sort of get his thoughts and maybe talk to some of the professionals in that space about what we can do to sort of foster a good environment for wellness. Our next meeting is next Wednesday. No, Tuesday, excuse me, the 18th. And we'll probably talk about whatever goals we talked about tomorrow. Oh, and we also got an update from Doug on exactly where the student survey was on the logo.
Very good. Liaison reports. Any volunteers? Any issues?
The Environmental Sustainability Committee is meeting on this Thursday at 7 p.m. via Zoom. That's all I have for that.
Okay. What else? Okay, seeing none, those reports, as we know, are as needed and as warranted. Great. Excuse me again. Item number 13 is just I'm just going to quickly run down some future dates. We have a busy October leading into certainly a busy couple weeks in November before the winter holiday season begins. But tomorrow evening, we have the annual school committee retreat and goal setting session, Wednesday, October 12th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Galvin Middle School. A week from tonight, community forum on the new Wakefield Memorial High School project, another status report, a community forum this time, led by the project consultants, and that will be via Zoom, October 18 at 7 p.m. Our next school committee meeting will be 2 weeks from this evening, Tuesday, October 25. We'll be participating in the annual tri-board meeting among the town council, the finance committee, and the school committee on Thursday, October 27 at the Galvin, 7 p.m. As I mentioned earlier, the school committee evaluation of the superintendent has been moved from our discussion last week until Tuesday, November 15. And the two meetings for November are Tuesday, November 15 and Tuesday, November 19. Now that is a little bit off cycle with how many Tuesdays there are in November, but that is not different than the schedule. The schedule that's been published and approved speaks to that. I just figured I would.
Do you mean the 29th? Tuesday, November 29th?
Correct.
Okay.
Tuesday, November 15 and Tuesday, November 29.
Okay.
That's what's on the.
You said 19.
Oh,
So
my
just
bad.
wanted to clarify,
No,
yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, yep. So, a busy couple weeks coming up, and lots happening in Wakefield schools. Okay, any other thoughts on agenda items that any member of the committee would like to see brought forward in any meetings, not in October?
It would be nice to meet Dustin where the
Yes.
technology works,
Mm-hmm.
because the food pantry is chomping at the bits to sink their teeth into them.
Yeah.
So
That's
you're going to
on-
hear
that's
from
on our
him
plate.
personally before our next meeting.
Oh, I will. Okay.
And he will be at our next meeting.
Awesome, that sounds
Yeah.
great. Look forward to it.
Yeah,
He's going to be at the October 25th
October
one?
25.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. Might be joining via Zoom. We have to nail that down.
Make sure
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah, but you'll hear from him about.
Sounds
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
I had one
Yes, please.
over at Town Day, over at the school committee table that Amy was nice enough to sort of organize. I got talking with Catherine Dingra about, she let me know that the Youth Action Committee just made a presentation to the Health Council or the Board of Health on school start times. And their impressions on it, and I think they did a really good job. I was wondering if we could have them give us that presentation.
Good. So this is the Student Council?
No, Youth Action Committee.
Youth Action Committee.
I think also known
Youth
as
Action Team.
Wake Up.
Yes.
They're an impressive group.
Yes.
Okay.
They made little stress balls with hands, and I still have mine. But yeah, I'm just impressed that they did the work, and they went. I don't know if they just sort of trialed it in front of the Board of Health, and then. But I would love to see that group of students here and sort of let us know what their thoughts are.
Okay, good idea, can do. Okay, school committee comments going around the table. Kevin?
I want to thank Amy for setting up the school committee table at the town day. It was really great. Amy set up trivia questions for all the students, and they all knew their building principal. There wasn't one kid who did not know who their principal was. So, but yeah, only other thing is I'm very excited to see the presentation with the curriculum directors. I don't know if that's next meeting or
The
when that-
MCAS presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 25th.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah.
25th. But yeah, I met with Kara, the curriculum leaders on the elementary level, and everything looks really great. Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, Mike?
Good night tonight. Good, seeing the principals and CPAC and all the other guests. It was really good. Learned a lot, and it was good that we can show our appreciation for all the work they do.
Stephen?
Yeah, I was just I was thinking as I was watching the slides from the presentations and goals, I was thinking about the fact that Monday was sort of Indigenous Peoples Day. Today is National Coming Out Day, and I'm seeing these little pops of sort of acceptance and equity around everywhere, and it was really good to see it sort of in the goals and noticing whether it was culturally responsive teaching or social emotional learning, just this appreciation for broader views, and I feel like it's something that sort of can be under fire at times in our community, but I think if you hear from sort of the students, they talked about one thing was the social emotional loss. They talk about how students struggle to be even with each other after the pandemic, and one thing that comes out of sort of the culture responsive teaching and showing people sort of broader perspectives through social emotional learning is just this empathy that I think is always needed in our culture, in our society. And so right in our core value where we talk about creating respectful, caring members of society, of our community, I think that goes right back to what we just saw tonight in the slides from the educators, and just knowing that it sort of sits there. It's important work. It's called out specifically, is just incredibly important. And I thank them for making it one of their goals. And I think it's an important one. So thank you to them for putting it together. Thank you for supporting them in putting that together. It's really good work.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, just to kind of pick up with what Kevin was mentioning, Saturday was a really beautiful day down on the Common, and just wanted to express my personal thanks for everyone that was involved in setting that up, and then in particular Amy for our table. I kind of would wave and then go off and make a stress ball, and then wave again, and then go off with my nephews and guess but the table, I mean, and your children as well. Like she engaged her family to work there as well, and you could guess the number of candy corn. You could how heavy was this really big pumpkin, and it was great. So thank you. I mean, and Kevin, I saw volunteering, and I saw Stephen there as well as I kept going back and forth to all the other things and touch a truck. So, but thank you, Amy, for setting it up. It was awesome. It was a great representation, I think, of the school system, but certainly for the school committee, et cetera. So thanks for that great idea and for organizing it. So I promise I'll be more helpful in the future, but thank you for doing it. It was a great day.
Eileen?
Okay, I promise I won't cry again. So I wrote notes so I'd stay on track. So, all right, so I just want to say how clearly I was very moved by CPAC's presentation. I think what it did was show the raw emotion of a parent currently going through it. and being one of that 15%. So I hope I taught you all something of the raw emotion of it that they were speaking to, and I think it just kind of hit the nail on the head for me. So I just want to thank them again, because CPAC is so important for our community, and it's almost like you don't realize you need it until you need it. So they're amazing, and the two women who can, and they're just lovely. I also want to thank the school administration and, of course, Kara for sharing the school improvement plans. And I want to kind of say what Stephen said, which was like, I was really taken aback by how much of each school improvement plan included the social emotional health and growth of our students, and having that equity in the classroom and having diverse voices within the classroom and the lessons. And I think it is so important, and unfortunately it is something that can be, for some reason, a little bit controversial, but I love that our school community embraces that. And so I just want to thank you guys for that, obviously, from the top there. That's I have to say about all that. And I made it through with no crying, so.
Very good. Sweet.
You're welcome.
And Amy.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to thank CPAC for coming. I've actually been involved with CPAC for many years now, and I appreciate, first it was Mike and now Stephen being the liaison, because I think it's helpful that parents that might not have special, and they may have them, I don't know, but all parents to learn about special education, because it may touch you at some point in your life, you just don't know it. Then for Town Day, it was great success, it was a lot of fun. I have some winners to announce. We have a student from the Dolbear School who guessed the pumpkin weight. I'll be dropping off a gift certificate at the, wait, did I say Woodville or Dolbear?
Dolbear.
Okay, I'll be dropping off a gift certificate to the Dolbear. His name is Trent. He guessed 20 pounds and it was 21.8. And then the other winner for the candy corn was Noah from the Woodville School, and he guessed, I think it was 360 and it was 382, and he was the closest without going over. And then the trivia questions, if you got it right, you could put it in the school of your choice. And the Galvin won that. So they'll be getting a $25 donation from the school committee.
Nice.
And one very smart student pointed out that the Galvin would probably win because they have more students. So next year we might have to change it to percentage. So, thank you.
Future mathematician. Very good. Well, I certainly join each of you in the comments that you said, so thank you for representing that way. And of course, thank you, Amy, for organizing last weekend. I was out of town, but I heard nothing but very good things, so thank you, and for those that were there. Without any further ado, make a motion to adjourn.
I move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, October 11, 2022.
Second, motion made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Great. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.